Running has really been like my biggest pastime. I want to get some exercise, I'm gonna go run. As I got into college, I was originally gonna kind of play a little bit of soccer here at Point Loma, but I decided it wasn't really the space for me, and one thing that really continued though was running. Super simple. They started out as like interval runs, so we'd jog for 2 minutes, sprint for a minute, and we do that for about half an hour. And that's how we would train for soccer, doing that almost like every day for the summers when we weren't doing training with the actual soccer team. So that's where it began, and then I just kind of continued that. Got into college, and then it was like another thing that I just wanted to do in my free time. I just wanted to run. Usually it's kind of probably in the afternoon. Sometimes I really enjoy running in the morning. So that's kind of, I'd rather start with the morning time per se. So in the morning, I'd wake up kind of earlier. It's like, all right, time to go out for a morning run. And I love running here in San Diego because of the cliffs. And so in the morning, it would be kind of cloudy, there's a certain ambiance and there's nobody out. It's so quiet. And I'm like, all right, time to go on a run. So I think there was like 1 or 2 times I was like, I'm gonna push myself and run like for 5 miles. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. I ran it in less than 50 minutes. And at that time, like I was so stoked about that time. So I remember little things like that. So usually I always kind of set a goal mile or a goal time frame to do. And so that's kind of my headspace is like, all right, I gotta do this goal. And I'm very a goal-oriented person. And so when I set out to reach that goal, I gotta hit that. Like, there's nothing that's gonna stop me doing that. And so I'll go out onto a run and I'll hit 15 minutes, turn around, come back. And that'll usually be about a 30-minute run, which ends up being just kind of a little bit more than a 5K. My runs have kind of evolved throughout my life. Kind of my thought process is really rooted in some of my core beliefs and what I really stand on. So in 1 Corinthians 6:20, it says, for you are bought with a price, therefore glorify God in your body. And so I've always just kind of taken that to heart. I get motivated, I'm inspired to do it. And so then throughout that process, I just started putting on miles and miles and miles. I found also running to be not only a good exercise way for me, good ways to get outside, but also a good way for me to just mentally process my life. And so I've definitely, like we all do, we go through really tough times in life. And so I found that just me going out for like a 10-mile run is so therapeutic for me. It sounds like I'm insane and like kind of psychotic, but it's true. Like I go out and I put some music in. Sometimes I do no music and I'll just run and run and run. And I just think about life. I don't think about life. Like that's the beauty of it. I can do whatever I want, wherever my mind goes. That's what I'm gonna think about. And so being in kind of tougher times like that, when I'm out on a run, it just helps me to kind of maybe think about what I'm going through, how I can, process it, how I can move forward. And oftentimes, like, I feel better within a run, mentally. Physically, obviously, that always is there, but mentally, it's always been a good way for me just to feel better and help me to process and maybe figure out things, a way to move forward. Because it's like an hour of myself, an hour of just by myself where I can just think. Like when I go out for runs during like that time where I'm just trying to reflect, or maybe I'm at a low point in my life or at a high point in my life, I find that I don't really listen to like crazy music. I find myself, if I actually am listening to music, number one, I don't want to throw off my pace, but number two, I listen to more like quiet music, kind of feel inspired, but also so I can really just like reflect and be in like my deep thoughts with myself. And so I think that that's kind of like how I really reflect. And that also leads into how I just want to perform at like my best, which has always been like one of the biggest ways in how I've been able to just like worship God. Like growing up, I never really was like really into some like the singing and that kind of worship. So I really was, how I worshiped God was trying to run. And that was a big part of soccer during high school and middle school and, growing up even when I was really little, and growing into, high school and college. But then running, was the thing that continued on. So then I found that running can be the way that I can worship God. And if I'm performing the best, if I'm running marathons, I'm running that long distance, I'm staying healthy, I'm keeping my body as a temple, then that is how I want to worship God. I've done 2 marathons now. So I ran another marathon in Florence, Italy, the Firenze Marathon, and it was insane because when I got to Italy during my semester abroad, I didn't expect to run a marathon at all. And so I heard someone mention to me early on, kind of in the semester, but I was like, no way, I'm not doing that. I just got over one. I just want to take a break. I didn't bring the right equipment. I didn't bring my right shoes, things like that. So I was like, I don't want to do it. Well, I got really, really inspired, like I said earlier, about that one day where I just wanted to run. And that was like the biggest thing for me in Italy, was just keep running. And so I got to the point where I'm like, well, I'm running so dang much. Why don't I just run a marathon again? So I signed up for it with 4 weeks until the date of the marathon. So I looked online. I was like, literally 4-week marathon training plan. And I found one, and they're like, we don't recommend this. Please do 8 weeks or minimum. And I was like, we're fine. Like, you're giving me a 4-week training plan, we're gonna do it. So I literally trained so hard for actually only 3 weeks of the 4 weeks, because the last week I had major shin splint issues. And I thought, I was like, this is bad news. So I took that final week off right leading up to the marathon. And that was kind of hard because I wanted to run. Again, running was so big for me mentally. That's how I can, find my well-balancedness, but also ways to worship God.
Young though. It's an audio of that.
Hey, yo.
Yikes.
Whoa!